Stop waiting. If you are sitting right now quietly hoping that next month will finally be different, that the money will show up, that the pressure will ease just a little, this message was made for you. You already know what financial fear feels like. The slow dread of checking your account. The mental math before every purchase. The exhaustion of working hard and still feeling like you are falling behind. Like everyone else got a manual you never received. Here is what changes everything, and it is not what you expect. Neville Goddard taught that your subconscious mind has no concept of tomorrow. It cannot wait. It cannot hope. It lives in one permanent state, and that state is now. So every time you say, "I will be wealthy," every time you send your desire out into some imagined future, your deeper mind registers only one signal. It is not here yet. And it works, faithfully and without rest, to keep that true. What you are about to learn is the technique Abdullah gave to Neville Goddard. Not a motivational framework, not a mindset tip, but a precise method for collapsing the distance between the life you are living and the life that already exists for you in the fourth dimension of consciousness. You will not be asked to hope harder. You will be asked to remember something that has not happened yet. And by the end of this, you will understand exactly what that means and how to do it tonight. Most people who find Neville Goddard's teachings make the same costly mistake without realizing it. They absorb the philosophy, they feel the resonance, and then they begin doing the work, writing down desires, repeating affirmations, constructing visualizations, all while remaining, in their deepest inner posture, a person who is waiting for something to arrive. And that waiting is precisely the problem. Because the subconscious mind does not process the future tense the way the conscious mind does. It takes the feeling underneath the words, not the words themselves, and manufactures external evidence in exact correspondence with that feeling. Neville Goddard was uncompromising on this point throughout his lectures. He taught that time, as human beings experience it, is not a flowing river moving from past to future. It is a series of states, each one complete and permanent in itself. The past you remember is not gone. It is simply a state you are no longer inhabiting. The future you want is not arriving from some distant horizon. It exists right now as a fully formed state of consciousness, available to any person whose awareness is willing to enter it. Somewhere in the architecture of possible experience, there is a version of your life in which the financial weight you carry has been completely lifted. That version is not a fantasy, and it is not a reward waiting to be earned. According to Neville Goddard, it is a state as real as the one you are currently occupying, and the only thing separating you from the person living, that life is the inner assumption each of you carries as normal. As he put it directly, you do not attract what you want. You attract what you are. Not what you wish for, not what you pray toward, but what you are, at the level of felt identity, in this moment. This is why financial affirmations so often produce nothing. The mouth says, "I am wealthy," while the body, the nervous system, the subconscious record of 1,000 mornings of financial anxiety, says something entirely different. The subconscious registers the feeling, always the feeling, and it builds accordingly. What you have been experiencing is not a failure of desire. It is the subconscious doing its job perfectly, constructing a world that matches the state it believes is real. The way out is not louder affirmations or more disciplined effort. The way out is a genuine shift in the state itself, and that shift happens through a mechanism most people have never been taught to use deliberately. There is a story from Neville Goddard's own life that tends to stop people mid-breath the first time they really hear it. In the 1940s, Neville was living in New York with almost nothing to his name, and a deep desire to return to Barbados, the island where he was born, to see his family. There was no money for a ticket and no visible path that could get him there. By every external measure, the trip was simply not possible. His teacher Abdullah's response was not sympathy or strategy. He looked at Neville and said, plainly, "You are already in Barbados." When Neville pushed back, gesturing toward the obvious reality of his New York apartment, Abdullah turned away and refused to discuss it further until Neville was willing to meet him on those terms. The message was not subtle. Abdullah was not interested in discussing the problem. He was only interested in the assumed solution. So Neville went home and did something that looked, from the outside, like nothing at all. He lay down each night and assumed the feeling of being there. Not the image of Barbados from a distance, not the wish to be there someday, but the specific sensory reality of having arrived. The warmth, the reunion, the texture of that particular homecoming felt from inside the experience. Weeks later, through a sequence of events his rational mind could never have engineered, a military discharge came through unexpectedly. A travel allowance followed, and Neville sailed home in first class. He had not forced it. He had not planned it. He had simply refused, with absolute consistency, to live from the state of absence. What makes this story more than a fascinating anecdote is what modern neuroscience discovered arriving from an entirely different direction. Research into how the brain processes experience has shown that under conditions of vivid, emotionally engaged imagination, the same neural pathways activate as when a person physically lives through the event being imagined. The brain encodes it not as fantasy, but as memory, as something experienced rather than something invented. This is what Neville Goddard called future memory, the deliberate act of remembering an event that has not yet appeared in linear time, planting it in the subconscious as established fact rather than pending wish. Neville Goddard described imagination as the only redemptive power available to human consciousness, and he was not speaking poetically. He taught that imagination is not a tool of the mind, but the presence of infinite intelligence operating through the human being. William Blake, whose work formed a foundation for much of Neville Goddard's understanding, wrote that imagination is not a state, but human existence itself, the very substance from which experience is formed. Both men were pointing at the same architectural truth. The inner world does not reflect the outer world. The outer world reflects the inner one, and your current financial reality is a precise printout of your most chronic inner imagination, not your wishes, but your deep, habitual, automatic inner picture of yourself in relation to money and abundance. If that picture carries the signature of struggle, of almost but not quite, of watching others move forward while you remain static, then external effort alone will not hold the gains. New money will leak back out. New opportunities will quietly collapse. The subconscious corrects course back toward the familiar state with relentless efficiency. Change the picture, and everything downstream changes with it. Abdullah's philosophy, the one he transmitted to Neville Goddard over years of rigorous teaching, was ruthless in its simplicity. He had no patience for hoping, no interest in effort directed toward a goal, and no tolerance for the idea that the desired state was something to be approached gradually from a position of current lack. His entire instruction rested on one distinction that most people miss entirely. Do not imagine what you want. Imagine from having received it. The word "from" carries the entire weight of the method. Not toward, not someday, not hopefully, but from the internal posture of a person already living inside the answered desire. To practice this tonight, you do not need anything elaborate. Choose not an image, but a feeling, the specific emotional texture of the financial state you want. What does it actually feel like in your body when the debt is gone, when the pressure has lifted, when you can open your account without dread? Find that feeling with precision, not the money as an object, but the felt reality of having it already. And then do not project it forward into some imagined future. Reach backward into it instead. Remember it. Claim it as a state that already exists, and that you are simply returning to, because according to the metaphysical framework Neville Goddard spent decades unpacking, that is exactly what you are doing. The physical anchor for this practice is something Neville Goddard called the sigh of relief. It is not a theatrical gesture. It is the genuine full-body exhale of a person whose long tension has finally resolved. The kind of breath you take when something heavy you have been carrying for a long time is set down at last. That exhale communicates something to the subconscious that no affirmation spoken from a tense chest can communicate. It signals completion. It signals arrival. And the subconscious mind, receiving that signal with full feeling behind it, accepts it as instruction and begins immediately reconfiguring the outer world to match. One place this practice breaks down consistently is in the question of how. The analytical mind, trained through years of cause and effect living, cannot fully rest until it has mapped every step from the current state to the desired one. And when those steps are not visible, it quietly labels the whole enterprise unrealistic and withdraws its participation. Abdullah simply would not engage with that interference, and Neville Goddard confirmed through his own experience and through the documented experiences of hundreds of people who applied these teachings that the mechanism of fulfillment is genuinely not the practitioner's responsibility to engineer. What he called the bridge of incidents, the unpredictable sequence of meetings, circumstances, and openings that carry a person from inner assumption to outer reality, assembles itself in response to the assumed state. The bridge builds because the state was held, not because someone figured out how to build it. This matters enormously for anyone trying to apply these ideas to finances specifically, because financial manifestation tends to trigger the analytical mind more than almost any other desire. The mind wants a logical pathway. It wants to see the mechanism. But Neville Goddard's teaching, confirmed repeatedly across his lectures and the testimonies he collected, is that the infinite intelligence does not need your map. It needs your assumption, felt fully, held consistently, and surrendered without attachment to a particular route. Your assignment is the state. Everything else follows from that. Joseph Murphy, building directly on the metaphysical architecture that Neville Goddard had established, described the subconscious mind as a garden that accepts every seed planted through repetition and feeling and grows it without evaluation, without judgment, and without exception. What made Murphy's documentation so compelling was not the philosophy itself, but the specificity of his cases, ordinary people facing genuine financial hardship who transformed their circumstances not by changing their external situation first, but by consistently entering a particular state of mind at a particular moment in the day when the subconscious is most open to direct impression. That moment is the threshold between wakefulness and sleep. Neville Goddard called it the state akin to sleep, and he returned to it across decades of teaching because he understood its unique significance. In ordinary waking life, the analytical mind acts as a filter, evaluating incoming information against existing beliefs and rejecting anything that conflicts with the established story about who you are and what is real for you. But in those minutes when consciousness begins to soften and the critical faculty relaxes its grip, that filter dissolves. Whatever you plant in that state goes directly into the subconscious without resistance, without argument, coded as experience rather than aspiration. Tonight, instead of drifting off while replaying the day's frustrations or rehearsing tomorrow's fears, construct one simple internal scene. Not a long sequence, just one moment, one image with feeling behind it. Something that implies your desired financial state is already accomplished. Someone congratulating you. The quiet physical sensation of reading an account that reflects abundance. The specific calm of a person who has set down a burden they have been carrying for years. Enter that scene from the inside as the person living it, not as an observer watching it, and allow yourself to fall asleep carrying that feeling. You are not performing hope. You are imprinting a state. The metaphysical reasoning behind why this produces results goes deeper than technique. Neville Goddard taught that human beings exist inside what he called the fourth dimension, a dimension of consciousness that contains every possible state of being as an already completed reality. What you call your current financial situation is not a fixed truth about what is available to you. It is simply the state your awareness has been most consistently inhabiting. Think of it as one room inside a building of infinite rooms, each one fully real, each one accessible, and each one waiting for nothing other than the decision of consciousness to move into it. The scripture captured this with a precision that Neville Goddard found remarkable, recording the instruction to believe that you have received what you desire, not that you will receive it, not that you deserve it, but that you have already received it. Past tense, the entire mechanism of assumption contained in a single grammatical choice. Neville Goddard taught that this was not poetic language. It was the exact operative instruction for how the law works, because belief expressed as present possession, felt in the body as already done, is the only signal the fourth dimension responds to. Contemporary neuroscience arrives at the same conclusion through the lens of neuroplasticity, the brain's demonstrated capacity to rewire its own architecture based on consistently rehearsed internal experience. Every night you fall asleep inside the felt reality of abundance, you are not just practicing a technique. You are physically rebuilding your neural identity, becoming, in measurable biological terms, a different person, one for whom wealth is not a distant goal, but a lived baseline. And that person, as Neville Goddard taught without exception, inhabits a different world, because, as he put it, man moves in a world that is nothing more or less than his consciousness objectified. Everything covered here, the illusion of linear time, the eternal now of the subconscious, Abdullah's technique, the sigh of relief, the bridge of incidence, the threshold state before sleep, all of it points back to a single truth that Neville Goddard never stopped restating in different forms across 40 years of teaching. Your outer world is not the cause of your inner state. Your inner state is the cause of your outer world, and it has always been this way, whether you were aware of it or not. The debt is not generating the anxiety. The chronic inner state of financial insecurity has been regenerating the debt with perfect mechanical fidelity every single day. And this cuts both ways with complete equality. When the inner state shifts, genuinely shifts, felt in the body, and impressed into the subconscious through the threshold of sleep, the outer world follows. Not as a reward, not as a lucky coincidence, but as the inevitable reflection of a consciousness that has changed what it is assuming as real. Neville Goddard did not teach people how to want things more effectively. He revealed the law by which reality itself is assembled, and that law carries no preferences. It does not favor the educated or the talented or the spiritually advanced. It responds only to the one who assumes with genuine, felt conviction, because conviction at that level is the language the infinite intelligence recognizes as instruction. You now hold that understanding. The timeline between where you are and where you want to be is not a road you have to walk down step by step. It is a gap between two states of consciousness, and it can be collapsed tonight, not by forcing circumstances to change, but by inhabiting the state of the person for whom they have already changed. Use the sigh. Build the scene. Cross the bridge in imagination before you see it in the world. Let the intelligence that organized this entire universe handle the architecture of how it appears. If these teachings are speaking to something real in you, something you have always sensed but never had the precise language for, subscribe to this channel and join a community of people who are done managing lack and ready to inhabit abundance. Every week, these principles go deeper, because Neville Goddard left behind a body of work vast enough to spend a lifetime living inside. And that is exactly what this channel is built to help you do. As Neville Goddard taught, in words that have quietly changed thousands of lives, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and observe the route that your attention follows. Assume it tonight. The rest will come.